General Hospital. The atmosphere in Port Charles had shifted. What began as an ordinary day quickly turned into one filled with uncertainty, whispered conversations, and difficult decisions that would affect several lives. Rocco had never expected a private mistake to become the center of attention. For weeks he had been carrying a burden that grew heavier with each passing day. The pressure of keeping secrets was taking its toll, and those closest to him had begun noticing the changes. His usually confident attitude had been replaced by hesitation, and his cheerful personality seemed buried beneath constant worry. Unfortunately for Rocco, secrets rarely stay hidden forever. Nathan found himself caught in an uncomfortable position. He had stumbled upon information he never intended to discover. At first, he convinced himself it wasn't his place to get involved. He told himself that staying silent would prevent unnecessary drama. But the more details he uncovered, the more he realized that keeping quiet could create even bigger problems. The situation became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, Nathan made a decision that would send shockwaves through several families. During an emotional conversation, he revealed what he knew to a trusted confidant. He didn't act out of spite or anger. In fact, the choice weighed heavily on him. Yet he believed the truth needed to come out before matters spiraled completely out of control. The revelation spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, rumors began circulating throughout Port Charles. Friends started asking questions. Family members demanded answers. Everyone seemed to have a different version of the story, making it difficult to separate fact from speculation. Rocco soon realized that people were talking about him. At first, he denied everything. He hoped the situation would fade away if he simply refused to engage with it. But deep down, he knew the truth was catching up to him. Every conversation became more uncomfortable than the last. Every glance from a friend felt loaded with judgment. The pressure mounted. Meanwhile, Carly was dealing with an entirely different challenge. She had recently become involved in a situation she initially believed was routine. However, the deeper she looked, the more concerned she became. Small details that once seemed insignificant suddenly formed a troubling pattern. Information wasn't adding up. Certain individuals were acting strangely. Questions remained unanswered. Most importantly, Carly began feeling that someone was watching her every move. At first, she dismissed the feeling as stress. She had been through countless difficult situations before. Experience had taught her not to panic over every suspicious detail. But this felt different. The warnings started subtly. A missed phone call, an unexpected message, a conversation that ended abruptly when she entered the room. Each event on its own seemed harmless. Together, however, they painted a disturbing picture. Brennan noticed the same warning signs. Known for his ability to remain calm under pressure, Brennan rarely jumped to conclusions. Yet after reviewing everything he had learned, even he found himself concerned. The more he investigated, the clearer the situation became. Someone wanted information. Someone was determined to keep certain secrets hidden. And Carly had unknowingly moved far too close to the center of the storm. When Brennan finally sat down with Carly, his tone immediately caught her attention. This wasn't a casual conversation. This wasn't a friendly warning. This was serious. He explained that recent events were connected in ways neither of them had originally realized. What seemed like separate incidents were actually part of a much larger picture. As Brennan laid out the details, Carly listened carefully. Each new piece of information made her expression more concerned. By the end of the conversation, she understood one thing perfectly clearly. Remaining where she was could create unnecessary risks. For perhaps the first time in a long while, Carly found herself facing a choice she didn't want to make. Stay and continue searching for answers, or step away temporarily and protect herself while the truth unfolded.
Neither option felt right. Leaving would mean surrendering control. Staying could place her directly in the path of growing trouble. As night fell over Port Charles, Carly weighed her options carefully. Her instincts told her that Brennan wasn't exaggerating. He genuinely believed the situation could become far more complicated. The next morning brought even more surprises. New information surfaced, unexpected alliances formed, old tensions returned, and several people suddenly found themselves connected through circumstances they never anticipated. At the center of everything stood Rocco. The young man who had hoped to keep his personal struggles hidden now faced the reality that everyone wanted answers. Friends questioned his decisions. Family members worried about his future. Even those who supported him admitted that mistakes had consequences. Rocco felt isolated. Yet, amid the chaos, something unexpected happened.
Instead of turning completely against him, several people offered understanding. They recognized that everyone makes mistakes. What mattered most wasn't the error itself, but how he chose to respond moving forward. That realization changed everything. For the first time since the truth emerged, Rocco stopped focusing on damage control and started thinking about accountability. He knew difficult conversations awaited him. He knew rebuilding trust would take time, but he also understood that honesty was the only path forward. Elsewhere, Carly prepared for a temporary departure. The decision wasn't easy. Port Charles had always been her home. Its people were her family. Its conflicts were woven into her history. Leaving, even briefly, felt unnatural. Still, experience had taught her an important lesson. Sometimes the smartest move isn't charging directly into a problem. Sometimes it's stepping back long enough to understand the entire picture. Before leaving, Carly met one final time with Brennan. Their conversation was thoughtful and measured. Neither pretended to have all the answers. Neither claimed to know exactly what would happen next. But both agreed that patience could reveal truths that force never could. As they parted ways, Brennan promised to continue monitoring developments. Carly promised to remain cautious, and together they hoped the coming days would bring clarity. Back in town, Rocco faced another critical moment. Rather than avoiding difficult discussions, he chose to confront them directly. One by one, he spoke with the people affected by recent events. Some conversations went better than expected. Others were painful. A few ended without resolution. Yet each interaction represented progress. Trust, after all, isn't rebuilt overnight. It's rebuilt through actions. As word spread about Rocco's efforts, public opinion slowly began to shift. People still had questions. People still had concerns, but they also saw someone attempting to learn from his mistakes rather than run from them. That distinction mattered. Meanwhile, unanswered mysteries continued lingering beneath the surface. Who had been creating so much uncertainty? Why were certain individuals determined to keep information hidden? And what would happen when every piece of the puzzle finally came together? The answers remained just out of reach. Yet one thing became increasingly clear. The story was far from over. New revelations waited around the corner. Unexpected partnerships were beginning to form, and several residents of Port Charles were about to discover that their lives were connected in ways they never imagined. For Rocco, the future remained uncertain but hopeful. For Carly, distance might provide the perspective she needed. For Brennan, the investigation was only beginning. And for everyone else caught in the middle, the coming days promised surprises that could change everything. As the dust settled temporarily, Port Charles held its breath. Because in a town built on secrets, every ending is really the beginning of another chapter. And sometimes the truth arrives when nobody expects it.
If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more dramatic soap-inspired stories, twists, mysteries, and emotional moments. Tell us what you think happens next and which character's journey you're most excited to follow.